welcome back to the Almanac Comicopia, your guide through the original and incredibly messy DC Universe. Find yourself something healthy, something hydrating, and prepare yourself for another incredibly deep dive into Shuster and Siegel's time with the very first Man of Steel. This time around, I intended to look at a full year of Superman, or at least every story of his told by Shuster and Siegel. However, since there's simply so very much of it, thanks to the McClure Syndicate's newspaper comics, the Almanac will instead cut Superman's second year into 4 quarters, with this video covering January through March. We'll be kicking things off somewhere around the start of 1939. Exact dates are never easy. Right now on screen is the same timeline from our previous video, indicating each of our 4 heroes' debuts. On screen now is some banner artwork for the first Superman text story, included in the final pages of Superman number 1. Text stories of this type were common, to my knowledge, back in the day. Anyway, in this story, the reader is introduced to Harvey Brown, patent attorney, and Detective Sergeant Blake, the latter of whom has arrived to see smashed desks, overturned filing cabinets, strewn plaster, gaping holes in the walls, and other signs of Clark's ill temperament beset against the former man's office. We find out that Superman raided this office because he believes that Brown has stolen his client's inventions. The sergeant discovers his men allowed Clark to waltz right on by in strange costume and all. He then abuses the elevator programming to purportedly trap Superman in the elevator with the intention to buy time for his men to get sufficiently mobilized. The men nervously wonder if their gunfire will even work when the elevator doors open. And it's a slim, nervous figure standing there. Clark then trolls the policemen further, as trolling is clearly the man's calling in life. When Blake fervently demands why it's Clark emerging from the elevator and not Superman, he replies smugly,
"Possibly your man was high-strung or had an overactive imagination."
Clark then finagles his way into a ride over to police headquarters, claiming he was in search of a story. On the ride over, he bullies the poor Detective Sergeant Blake, forcing the man to provide a favor in return for Clark not printing the story about Blake's men losing Superman. He's cruel even out of costume. Clark immediately cashes in on this favor when they arrive at the station, by asking to interview one Biff Dugan, long sought-after murderer who had just incidentally been caught. Blake acquiesces on the condition that Clark understands that Clark will be held personally responsible for anything that happens to the prisoner. Clark agrees. Inexplicably, the prisoner escapes just as Blake comes to verify that everything's hunky-dory. This causes Clark to throw the fellow up into the wall, knocking him out so that he could change into Superman unseen, providing him the necessary cover to capture this Biff fellow. Sheesh. The prose tells us,
"One lithe leap brought him to the windowsill. There he posed momentarily, while his keen telescopic vision surveyed the vicinity."
This image portrays the end of the text story, with Clark descending virtually from the heavens to become an immovable obstacle for Biff's escape. The story ends in reality with the Detective Sergeant Blake waking up to a restrained Biff and a concerned Clark, who conveniently provides a story that
A man wearing a strange costume jumped to the windowsill, tossed Biff in, then leapt away.
Blake concludes that Superman isn't such a bad guy, but he would arrest him given the chance.
Let's hope you get within reaching distance.
But in a further fascinating touch, Siegel and Shuster allow for the following.
Detective Sergeant Blake casts a quick, suspicious glance at the reporter. For a moment, he'd fancied he had detected a trace of mockery in Kent's voice, but Clark's visage was completely solemn.
Gosh, being right is oh so very much fun. Clark is mocking others. He most certainly does view himself as other than humans, likely some type of superior to them. Let's make sure to retain this lens moving forward in the stories. Action Comics number 8 is our first proper comic of the video. It has a Clarkless cover, so instead I've included the banner panel from the first page, whose flavor text informs us in standard fashion about the array of Superman's powers that assist him
in his one-man battle against the forces of evil and oppression.
It's a relief for me that the lexicon has shifted away from strongest man and back towards something justice-centric. This comic cold opens to
a session of juvenile court.
where Frankie Morello
charged with assault and battery.
has nothing to say for himself.
Except if he had handed over his dough without squawking, I wouldn't have hit him so hard.
Clark happens to be present
Completely engrossed.
and in agreement with Miss Morello as she pleads with the judge to consider the context, that Frankie's just like all the other neighborhood boys,
Hard, resentful, underprivileged.
and furthermore how,
He might have been a good boy except for his environment.
and indeed how,
He still might be, if you'll be merciful.
moments later, Frankie is sentenced. His gang and their reactions are shown here alongside a simultaneous portrayal of Clark, who, despite sitting,
Far across the room.
hears well enough to
Catch the boys.
excited remarks. Further down page 2, the reader is treated to Clark's transformation once again. I've omitted this in favor of the spectacular rendering of Clark declaring that,
The boys don't know it, but they're going to have another attendant at their meeting.
outside of further context regarding Clark's brutality, this seems wholesome. However, I know what makes this Clark Kent smile, and I'm not happy to see him so cheeky over what seems like small fish in a big city. Granted, this is no becoming the circus strongman, but still, insinuating flight, the subsequent panel shows Superman taking
A forward dive through the window.
to set
Off on his errand of mercy.
mercy. Let's hope the narration speaks truth to the unraveling story before us. Page 3 introduces us to
Gimpy, receiver and fence for stolen goods. Loathsome corrupter of youth.
who's counting up a more than modest sum for 1939 when the kids arrive. Not shown was the gang deciding that Gimpy likely ratted Frankie out due to his lack of assistance before or after Frankie's arrest.
Who's there?
Calls out, startled by the boys. Then, a moment later, Whitey takes note of the table.
A lot of money you got there, Gimpy. How come you didn't spend some of it on a lawyer for Frankie?
Gimpy's response doesn't make him look very respectable to us, the reader, as he immediately says,
Never mind that money. It's mine. Forget you saw it.
Red justifiably ignores the directives, invoking their rapport.
You promised us you'd help us if we'd ever got tangled with the cops. You promised us, Gimpy.
Now, to these boys' credit, while operating under the belief that they were betrayed by the man, they still attempted discourse. This is quite mature behavior for a group of ruffians, in my opinion. What do you think? Keep in mind, during their whole conversation until this point, they have not threatened the man, giving him ample opportunities to explain himself or to try to make things right in another fashion. Unfortunately, with a table of cold hard cash, Gimpy has the gall to end the discourse.
Sure, I promised you. But could I help it if business got so bad I couldn't? We want money, Gimpy.
Red cuts him off, inquiring whether he is,
Gonna give it?
while one of his friends grabs a wrench from a nearby counter. The threat is very effective, and we get this great close-up of Gimpy amidst some of his luxury, sweating bullets. Despite this, he doesn't give the boys cash. He gives them locations of big hauls he wants them to commit on his behalf, promising huge pay for the jobs. Strangely, the gang of youth are cool with the plan. Stripe says,
Sounds okay to me.
Red's busy thanking old Gimpy and commenting that the address means that it's a...
Ritzy, join.
All I can say is stay in school, kids. You need your noggins. They totally forgot about the money on the table, or what? Do you think that this is poor writing on Shuster and Siegel, or are these kids believably short-sighted? In a reveal, next panel, we see Gimpy thinking to himself.
Well, is that a tight fix? Now to tip off the police and get rid of them kids like I did Frankie. They're getting too tough to handle.
This writing is a little convenient and clumsy for me. Just as he makes the call, Superman crushes the phone from behind him, declaring that he's...
Someone you're gonna wish you'd never met.
which is just total villain language. Just saying. Calling out for help yields a devastating face clap. Following this, Gimpy pleads.
Don't hit me again. I'll give you anything you want.
But old Batty Clark wants nothing but an excuse to be violent.
Thanks. What I want right now is another poke at you.
Clark's poke sends Gimpy crashing into the cupboard, after which, in an omitted panel, Clark threatens him that he has an hour to get out of town. Gimpy blurts out,
I will.
Clark drops him in a mysteriously open and nearby tar barrel on his way out from the junk shop, declaring,
See that you do.
Where's Clark going? In his own words.
Save those youngsters from the police and from themselves.
Later down that page, and with Clark on his way, Red, whose real name is Box Ears, his gang name, that is trespassing on the grounds of Peter Randall's estate. Just as he's spotted out in the wonderful panel numbered 36.
Superman swoops down out of the sky and snatches up Box Ears.
In the next scene, Superman has arrived too late to save Whitey. By the by, his real name is Nick. I don't think he has a gang name. In a now classic feat, Clark outpaces the speeding automobile, hoists it in the air, and removes his target from the vehicle while it's above him.
A moment later, he is streaking along with two bewildered captives.
In the ensuing scene, Clark arrives to find the third boy cleverly navigating his way out of his pickle.
Within a sleeping household.
Gosh, I cleaned out every bit of silverware in the joint. But now my bag is too heavy to lift without making a lot of noise. Unless... Wait, I've got it.
Well. Looks like your friend is busily occupied. If he'd only turn all that energy into constructive channels.
Matching up, oh so perfectly with the rest of Clark's behavior, he yeets the sack of valuables up through the open window without a thought for how that might go wrong. Closing out this part of the story is a funny moment. Just as...
The remaining member of the gang gives a soft cry of exultance, panting and sweating.
It took hours of hard work, but I finally broke through them bars. Boy, am I tired. But I'll ransack the place.
Clark's wiggly hand emerges from the shadows to yoink the fellow. Cap and Stripes asks Box Ears.
Who's the guy? We don't know. But is he strong? Woo!
Clark relocates the gang of youth to the tenements that they hail from in order to lecture them.
You've gotten it into your head somehow that it's smart to steal, that stolen money is easy dough. But that's not true. No doubt you've already learned that no matter how much you bring in, Gimpy keeps the lion's share.
Yeah, we only get peanuts. Like I was telling Pinky the other day. Shut up, Box Ears. You're blabbing too much. What we get is our own business.
As the scene plays out, Clark convinces the boys that the police pose a problem for them anyhow, since Gimpy not only doesn't have their backs, but is the one who alerted the police to their plans. As shown, it's at this
moment a shadowy figure suddenly straightens erect, levels a rifle.
No shocker here, it's Gimpy.
Eat leg, you little rat.
We turn the page and are treated to a portrayal of Superman outrunning the speeding bullet. Siegel and Shuster describe the moment as
a fantastic, tense drama, which is of such infinitesimal duration that the human eye is incapable of recording its amazing occurrence.
Supes takes the bullet for Red, not shown, and then tosses Gimpy all the way into the river, hundreds of feet away. Unfortunately, one of the gang thinks it's smart to assault Supes, and does so with a wrench in the poorly rendered panel numbered 67. Oddly, Supes blames all of the boys for this, scooping them up, and then, in an exasperated fashion, informs them that he's
Afraid there's only one thing left for me to do, and that's to throw a little fear and humility into you.
I'm worried for the boys. Superman is so egotistical and fickle. These were the youth he was supposed to spend the issue helping, and now they're gonna suffer his wrath, I fear. As he issues his punishment, he admits,
This is rather drastic, but the only way to put fear into you kids.
Supes has leaped dozens of feet up into the air to stand on the telephone wires now.
He teeters dangerously back and forth, apparently seeking to gain his balance.
However, we know he's in complete control. merely exacting his wrath on the naive youth. After an excluded panel where he backflips with the boys in his arms, he ends their stint on the wires by jumping down towards the street, so tiny below, and inquiring nastily,
Did you ever wonder, boys, how it would feel to fall from a great distance and be crushed to a pulp?
In the very next panel, as shown, they're already on the ground, with Supes commenting how they're
Safe and sound.
before asking how they'd.
Like to do it again?
The gang of youth finally look like children on the next page, shown now, where they astonish Supes by taking him up on his offer.
You bet.
One says. After Supes' omitted reaction, the boys concur that they want to be just like him, which would entail,
Being clean and honest.
as Captain Stripes puts it. In Supes' other omitted response, he draws the reader's attention once again to his belief that the boys' living conditions are the culprit behind their behavior and predilection. Convenience disrupts our story now, with the newspaper boy catching Superman's attention and supplying him a story about a cyclone in Florida wasting entire cities such that the government rushed aid to erect modern housing projects. Superman immediately becomes struck by
Superb, glorious inspiration.
as he informs the boys of his plan. I really like how the boys' announcement receives so much space and is allowed to eclipse the narration strip above it. It has the feel of a town crier. What do you think Superman's plan is, by the way? Well, Superman's plan starts with the boys going door to door and imploring their neighbors to leave their homes, taking all valuables with them. A skeptical neighbor asks if the boys are crazy, to which they calmly respond,
All we're doing is delivering Superman's message. And if you've an ounce of brains, you'll do as he says.
"Ha! I'm guessing that he's gonna relocate them to Florida in bundles by leaping and bounding down the East Coast." My God! I couldn't have been more wrong. This has been a serious social justice issue the entire time.
A few minutes later, people on the far fringe of the slum area are puzzled to hear a series of crashing rumbles which grow louder with each instant.
What's the sound? A furious Superman destroying the slum alongside his bitter commentary.
So the government rebuilds destroyed areas with modern cheap rental apartments, eh? Then here's a job for it. When I finish, this town will be rid of its filthy, crime-festering slums.
Honestly, I'm so shocked I can't develop my opinion about this course of action yet, but I'll return to this moment later in the video. Let's move on. The public servants arrive to assess and quell the hubbub caused by Superman, failing to take seriously the reports of one slum dweller.
A lunatic, knocking everything to pieces. You've got to stop him. Yeah, yes, me, you're the lunatic. One man creates all that chaos, you're cracked.
The guard arrives inexplicably quickly and threatens Superman to stop, or they'll shoot. However, that wouldn't matter very much, and he tells them so.
Shoot if you must, but after you had your fun, go away before I get annoyed.
Believe it or not, we're on the final page of the story, and this page is only 75% story. The rest is ads. I can't believe the story's ending so abruptly. Out of nowhere,
Squadron of aerial bombers.
I so sincerely wish this story had struck a better balance between Superman's war on the physical slum and the reason for going to war. Clark, who was in the middle of struggling with a huge edifice in an excluded panel, notices the drone of the incoming bombers, and so,
Nimbly, he races through the streets, explosions dodging his footsteps as the frantic aviators seek desperately to eliminate him.
Keep it up, boys. At this rate, the job will be finished sooner than I expected. With your assistance.
Shuster and Siegel imagine the government as organized enough to clear the wreckage, and to,
Have emergency squads commence erecting huge apartment projects.
in short time. Personally, I cannot picture this level of organization translating into some sort of governmental action against Superman, despite that making sense. It just wouldn't fit into the zeitgeist of comics as I understand it at the moment. The most that we get in this department is Police Chief Burke, in an interview with Clark, making a request that he
Can tell your readers that we'll spare no effort to apprehend Superman. But, off the record, I think he did a splendid thing, and I'd like to shake his hand.
As he is pictured shaking his hand unknowingly. Action Comics number 9 yields yet another Clarkless comic cover. Before we open it up, though, here's my take on Superman destroying the slum last issue. The way I see it, he defended those people's liberty, specifically by providing them a non-negligible increase in their equality of opportunity by forcing the government's hand to provide aid to rectify their living environment. I think this was a just and morally acceptable course of action by Clark that falls in line with the 19th century idea known as the 4 Boxes of Liberty. It posits that there are 4 boxes citizens must use to defend liberty in increasing order of severity and moral consequence. First, the soap box, then the ballot box, the jury box, and finally, a box of cartridges, meaning physical force. In my opinion, Clark, as a journalist, has witnessed the failure of the soapbox to rectify social injustice already. While I imagine his best course of action was employing a modicum of patience and wisdom to leverage his Superman persona to solve the housing problem more upstream, I can nonetheless respect the short-term action of forcing the government to update the buildings. Of course, in the real world, government housing tends to be low quality, so it's somewhat dubious the extent to which Clark improved things. All in all, I would really love to hear the opinions of dissenters in the comments, though. Since I found Clark's destruction of the slum so utterly shocking, I could readily be on board with you in a moment's notice. If you don't buy that it was okay of him, spell it out for us. I'm looking to discuss, not argue. The half-page flavor splash of Action Comics number 9 is more of the usual, but with Superman labeled Savior of the Helpless and Oppressed, a slight change from the previous issue. The comic opens with the Chief of Police, Burke, addressing some
Gentlemen of the press.
about Clark's actions last issue. Cool continuity. When the reporter's remarks are supportive of Superman,
Good for him. What the world needs is a couple more guys like him.
it causes the Chief to soberly clarify that,
Regardless of his motives and our personal approval of them, the fact remains that he has wantonly destroyed public property and must pay the full penalty to the law, just like any other transgressor.
the upshot of all this? He's imported one Detective Captain Riley to assist in the effort, a name known by the reporters. On the next page, the Chief introduces DC Riley as the man with an 100% success record. In the next panel, the one you're looking at, he brags to a reporter how he's been assigned to track down 800 men throughout his career.
And today, all 800 of those men are in prison.
Clark Kent, who wasn't previously shown, has been present for all the hubbub, and as DC Riley brags, he whispers to appear.
Of all the conceited windbags.
DC Riley, in ultimate cop form, assaults Clark for his comment. In the following scene, Lois Lane is receiving updates about the near altercation in the police chief's office, having zero pity for Clark, only remarking,
The coward.
"Icy cold, Lois." A little later, Clark arrives and, noticing Lois, approaches her, stating,
Don't forget, Lois, you promised me I could take you to a movie tonight.
She looks him dead in the face and simply tells him,
Clark Kent, I despise you.
the last we saw them interact was in Action Comics number 6, the issue with Fooperman and Lois drugging Clark. I guess we can believe her. Clark is shocked by her response, likely thinking of the scenes before dinner in issue number 6.
What? But you've been so friendly lately. I was beginning to hope.
I absolutely loathe you. You contemptible weakling. Don't you dare even talk to me anymore.
The scene continues on the next page, with Clark gaining some confidence, likely having some fun in pretending to do so.
You don't fool me. It's someone else. Tell me, Lois, who is this person whom you love? Tell me.
When Lois dodges the question, Clark goes full creepazoid.
Don't lie. I've watched you when you thought you were alone. A tender, faraway look creeps into your eyes. You're thinking of him.
Peeping and snooping, eh? I might have expected it of you. Yes, there is someone. He's grand. He's glorious. He's terrific. He's everything you're not. Brave, bold, handsome, superb.
Who is he?
Lois, with hands on hips, triumphantly declares.
Superman.
Lois watches Clark sulk off.
Dazed, bewildered, crushed.
Maybe I was too harsh with him, but I can't help it. He sickens me.
Moments later, once he's behind the closed door, Clark stops acting.
His woeful expression disappears. He clutches his sides and doubles, then shrieks with laughter.
Another moment, and I couldn't have suppressed it any longer.
At this point, I don't think I need to continue pointing out how Clark treats other people as his playthings. I look forward to reading some evidence to the contrary, but we'll see if it even happens in Shuster and Siegel's run. Back at headquarters, DC Riley cops a shit attitude with the police chief when questioned about how he's spent
The last 3 hours smoking up my cigars. Have patience, sir. I'm thinking.
Now, this strikes me as total baloney, but I'm willing to accept other reads of the situation if you've got a reason for it. In the subsequent omitted panel, the chief threatens him, and in doing so utters the word action, triggering a brain blast type of moment for Detective Chief Riley. He calls the editor of the Daily Star, Clark, and Lois's paper. Then he outright states,
Get this. A $5,000 reward will be awarded to the person causing the capture and arrest of Superman.
and then apparently hangs up immediately.
Why, are you crazy?
Indeed, this fella is, as his defense is that since he was granted permission to
Handle this case my own way. Well, that's the way I always start off. I see that a large reward is offered for a desperado's capture. Then I collect it myself.
Huh? Where's the reward coming from? We see the immediate fallout of this phone call below, with Lois remarking,
No. No! How awful!
while Mortimer Snoop, an amateur detective with a great name, also cites the headlines.
$5,000? A tiny sum. What I gonna do with $5,000?
Turning the page yields an incredibly abrupt shift away from these events. In 2 excluded panels, we get this clumsy portrayal of a mental patient escaping out a window, having purportedly slugged a doctor, but it's not shown. As you see, word has spread lightning quick within their hospital because a dispatcher is
Calling car K7. Proceed to City Hospital. Patient attempting suicide.
and who happens to hear this? But Clark, and an unnamed reporter.
Please, boss, can I cover it?
Why is the mental patient scene injected into this comic? I found myself asking. Well, as you see, at the bottom of the page, while the hospital employees are struggling to get a hand on the man, not that it looks like that would help the situation in the slightest.
Within an alley, a short distance off, Clark Kent strips off his outer garments and stands, revealed in the Superman costume.
Not a second to waste.
As Superman leaps upward, out of view, he does not realize that Mortimer Snoop had been an accidental witness to the transformation.
This is a horrendous narrative ploy by the beloved Shuster and Siegel. I'm stunned. Forgive me for laboring on about this, but wouldn't it have made more sense and been more thrilling for this scene to happen before the printing of the afternoon headlines? Then, when Mortimer sees the paper, he has something more interesting to say than,
$5,000? Tiny sum. What I gonna do with $5,000?
since he'll have seen the spicy secret. If you like it this way, I'd love to hear from you, as always. And if you think I'm crazy for thinking it's wrong the way it is, tell me too. Specifically, I'd like to imagine these 2 moments being right next to each other on the page, almost adding a comedic undertone to the thrill of whether Clark Kent will be exposed or not. I've cut off the speech bubble as it would be different in this version of the comic. Instead, we get these. I've got nothing against panel 27 on the left there. It's 100% serviceable in every fashion. Even the dialogue would work as a baseline when used with the newspaper panel.
For $5,000 reward, and he just jumped out of sight. My lord, I saw him change.
This way, the whole second speech bubble could read even more like a kid whose brain is zooming. To no one's surprise, Detective Captain Riley reveals himself a bully when responding to Mortimer's call.
Hello. For gosh sakes, I mean, is this Detective Captain Riley? About that $5,000. Do I get it if I tell you where you can capture Superman? You know where Superman is? Speak up, man. Where are you? Never mind about that reward. We'll settle that later. I'll be right down.
In an excluded panel, Snoop explains what he saw, leading DC Riley to start looking over the clothes.
No identification marks on these garments. All I can do is wait and hope he returns for them. If he does, I'll nab him. You'll nab him, but I saw him first. Sir, are you trying to cheat me out of the reward money? Why don't you run along, bud? There's liable to be some shooting when Superman shows up. I'll remain if you don't mind. If he thinks he's gonna bilk me out of my reward money, he's very much mistaken.
On the next page, we're treated to a stupendous feat.
From atop another building,
Superman spots the man, who is shown jumping off the ledge in a pair of omitted panels.
Can I make it?
The Man of Steel wonders, launching.
himself out and downward in a frantic effort to save the demented man's life.
Superman nearly fails. The snapshot-style action demonstrates just how close Clark was to failure, selling the thrill. Another takeaway is just how fast he can propel himself compared to a human's near-terminal velocity. A split second after grabbing the man, somehow not crushing him,
Superman strikes the sidewalk. It explodes in a hail of stony fragments.
Do you think his cape is yellow as a stylistic choice, or a coloring error here? Superman returns to the site of his earlier transformation to find the two men waiting for him, each wishing for some way to get rid of the other. They come up with the same idea of pretending to leave and sneaking back later, but Shuster and Siegel's later is the next panel, which feels strange. Shown now is the next page wherein
1 minute later, the two meet again, face to face, on the same spot.
this results in DC Riley threatening Mortimer for attempting the very thing he himself was doing.
You wanted to cop the reward, though, for yourself.
Then, in my favorite moment of the comic, there's this lovely green gradient framing smug DC Riley and sheepish Mortimer, who has just noticed.
The clothes, they're gone. He returned and got them while we were gone. You scheming rat. It was entirely your fault.
Funnily, Snoop is able to outrun the hero cop, crying out.
You were partly to blame yourself.
Clark observes the comedic scene from up above, but Shuster and Siegel leave it unclear whether he notices the missing slip of paper from the pocket of his suit, one that reminds Clark that he
Must remember to attend the Duncan reception tonight.
In an omitted panel, Snoop celebrates the $5,000 as being
Practically on my bank book right now.
in an actually logical turn of events for once,
That evening,
when
Snoop presents himself at the Duncan home.
he's turned away. However, he comes up with an idea involving the Daily Star where who else but Lois would be.
Working overtime.
In an omitted pair of panels, he explains his situation and promises that the Star will get the story first if they can get Mortimer into the party. Unfortunately for him, Lois is a Superman sympathizer who uses the information to concoct a plan of her own, one that begins with her requesting that he await her at the Duncan home entrance.
Later,
When she shows up, she utterly wrecks the fool, nose turned up,
I don't know him, and I don't care to.
leading the butler to forcibly escort the amateur dick off the grounds.
I've been double-crossed. She wants the reward money for herself.
Shuster and Siegel caught me off guard on the next page, with Snoop dialing up Bully Riley in an omitted panel, shown is him actually arriving, informing Mort,
I canceled an important engagement for this. If it's a bum steer, I'll get us into the Duncan home, and we've got him.
Meanwhile, inside, the fun continues, with Lois finding,
Clark, it's you! Oh, I've never been happier to see anyone in all my life.
But this afternoon...
Clark, someone has learned Superman is to be here tonight. You've got to help me find him and warn him.
But how will I recognize him? And besides, why should I help you after all you said today?
the dynamic duo, bust into the party, pushing aside the butler.
Sorry, but I'm not to admit you'll be really sorry if you try to stop us. Police headquarters. Phooey to you.
Mortimer squeaks in. Moments later, they realize that there's so many people, it will be difficult to determine which was the same man from earlier. Mortimer's idea is to search everyone. What a fool. Well, my bad. I guess I'm the fool. While Lois bemoans,
Too late. That horrid little man is here with a policeman. Why didn't you help me while we had time?
I hope they don't search everyone. I'm still wearing my uniform under these clothes.
Dick Riley calls for the men to line up in the omitted subsequent panel. Here, Clark taunts the bully.
Well, well. So it's 100% Riley, still on the trail of the big bad villain. Do you by any chance also suspect me of being Superman?
I wonder what he's planning. Your guess is as good as mine. As the search begins, Mortimer, flanderized within a single issue, tugs on the detective's jacket.
Oh, Riley. Well, what do you want? About the reward. I'll get it, won't I?
In a tense bit of situational irony, Clark can only watch the two bicker as he
Holds his breath. Soon it will be his turn to be searched. And then, discovery of his true identity is inevitable.
I dig the background, chosen angle, and general depiction of Clark here in the bottom right panel.
Of all the nerve. I captured Superman and you want the reward?
The schlub meekly requests.
A small portion of the $5,000. Beat it, you insect. You bother me. Get this straight. That reward dough goes to me alone. Every penny of it.
Shucks. Hate to see it. Shuster and Siegel have engineered an ass pull for Clark, with Mortimer now feeling sufficiently betrayed to disrupt the search. Just as it's Clark's turn, and he's coming to terms with how.
The truth will be out now in a matter of moments.
Snoop reaches for the light switch.
Once Riley manages to restore the lights, the story is over, since
Standing in the center of the room is the object of the detective captain's search. Simultaneously, Riley and Snoop leap for their prey. Both crash against Superman the same instant, stunning them into unconsciousness.
You're mistaken, boys. I've got you.
check out the beautiful penultimate panel of Lois staring off at the quickly disappearing Superman. This was the first time I've seen Clark in full pacifist mode, and I liked it. The final panel delivers a joke.
99% Riley leaves town in hurry. Attempt to capture Superman, a failure.
Published by the Daily Star, presumably Clark. Shifting gears, now on screen, you have the first two strips of a serialization known as The Comeback of Larry Trent. This story was drip-fed as dailies in the newspapers from February to March of 1939. Then it was re-released and colorized in Superman number 2, released in the fall. I think it makes the most sense to tell this story before its time skip, at least, before the March edition of Action Comics, number 10. Let's get into it. In a cold open, Superman,
While out searching for anyone in need of assistance,
notices.
Someone's falling.
The narration assures us that,
deliberately, Superman receives the brunt of the shock when they strike water.
but nonetheless, the man is knocked unconscious. Clark remarks to himself the man is familiar, but he cannot place the face.
Fool! I was committing suicide.
The man angrily rips his arm away from Clark.
Whoa, is that the way for you to behave toward the man who saved your life?
In a fury, the man attacks Superman.
I'll teach you to interfere in other people's lives.
Hey, you certainly can't handle your dukes. You're Larry Trent, ex-heavyweight champion of the world.
After Larry tells the tale of his downfall, Clark offers to redeem him.
Now, do you believe I have a chance for the heavyweight title of the world?
Of the world? Good lord! Of the universe!
Trent probably revealed his career has hit a point so far past its prime that he felt the need to end his life. Supes probably had the idea that he could live vicariously through coaching Larry's stint back to champion. Anyway, let's find out. Once Trent agrees to cooperation,
You bet, boy! If I stick with you, I'm really going places.
Clark yoinks him.
Don't be alarmed. We're going places all right, Larry, but shooting just a little higher than you expected.
They arrive at Superman's secret emergency apartment where he informs Larry.
This is where you'll stay for the next several months.
Why? Clark's taking his identity. At least it was agreed to this time around. What glorious fun. Supes arrives at the fight club where Mr. Tomorrow instructs the fighters.
Now listen, you mugs. I want action, see? And plenty of laughs.
Moments later, with the men assembled, he announces,
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness 12 men battling together in one ring. Now I ask ya, is that giving you your money's worth? Is it?
I'd like to pause here to comment on how much I'm enjoying how Shuster and Siegel criticize combat sport as spectacle for the delicate wealthy. Clark ruins everyone's, and I mean everyone's, night by knocking out all 11 exposed jaws in the space of a second. In an omitted strip, Clark is told to visit famous promoter Jock Kane. Back at the apartment, the men spar, and we find out Larry is Kane's
Pet hate.
since Larry lost the title however long ago. Shown.
Next morning, disguised as Trent, Superman calls on Kane.
However, the man and his guard Slugger tease Supes for being.
What happened?
Then Slugger aggressively grabs Larry's coat.
Listen, you broken down bum of a has-been. We got no use for trash around here. Clear out!
However, the men seemingly try to mailbox the fellow before he leaves. It's unclear to me. In any case, the narration informs us that it will be
Even funnier than.
Slugger is expecting, hinting at the reversal coming next page. Apparently, there was a thing called the hot foot, where, as far as I gather, you'd light a match under someone's shoe till it burned their foot somewhat. This is what Slugger bent down to do last strip.
Superman is unaware he is getting the hot foot until Slugger burns his own fingers.
Larry knocks him out in one punch, leaving Kane in disbelief. As Slugger rouses, Kane starts to threaten Kent. Slugger, on the other hand, sees potential in that punch, causing Kane to acquiesce. However,
After Superman departs,
it's revealed that Slugs just wants to.
Pay him back for that lucky punch with the worst beating of his life.
Back at the apartment, Supes tells Trent about the match with Slugger before asking him if he's ready for his workout in a somewhat condescending manner as far as I'm concerned. Down on himself, Larry pushes back.
Oh, what's the use? I'll never get back into good condition anyway.
Clark tosses the water from panel 1 in his face, prompting Larry's fury. Interestingly, Clark brings Larry to the big event. I'd be worried about being spotted if I were him. I mean, they're still dressed the same and all. There's some trash talk before the fight, and then...
at the sound of the gong, the two leap at each other like unleashed jungle beasts. The battle is on.
Clark doesn't hold back, allowing the man to hurt himself on his chin before taunting the man.
Gosh, it's warm here. Keep up the fanning. Maybe it'll cool me off.
In the second strip, we see a repeat of Slugsy hurting himself and Larry cheering himself on, and then crudely and unbelievably,
Barnes's frantic blows only wear himself down until one of his flailing haymakers knocks him out.
in the excluded strip, the crowd is astonished by Larry's victory, and Kane scolds Slugs for his loss. Meanwhile, a reporter asks if Trent will try for the heavyweight title. How does Superman reply?
Nope, not just a try. I'm gonna get it.
When Superman reaches his dressing room,
A new character intercepts him.
Wait, Larry. I want to talk to you.
Clark, lacking wisdom, immediately replies.
And who are you?
I don't blame you for slighting your old manager. But listen, kid, I built you up to the top of the heap once, and I can do it again.
Superman realizes he is talking to Tom Croy, Larry's former
And apparently,
crooked manager.
then, like with prior conversations with Lois, we're led into the character's psyche mid-conversation. Croy's indeed a swindler, and Clark's taking him down. In a twist next strip, it's revealed that Croy and his associate drugged Larry before his championship match way back when. Superman conveniently decided to spy on Croy in a moment off panel. His
Super acute hearing has enabled him to hear every word.
The first strip closes out with Kent pushing a predictive story of Larry's rise to the top, and the editor-in-chief decrying that there'll be
The laughing stock of all the other papers.
The second strip tells us that a span of months goes by while Supes builds Larry up. So we're gonna tell some of that story now. What happened during those months? First up is the March edition of Action Comics. Does Superman fight an airplane in this issue? Let's find out. This issue begins curiously enough after the typical half-page descriptive spread. Clark Kent is sent by the editor to look into what the latter man believes to be a crank call. Shown is the man confirming his call and telling Clark to
Step in, quickly.
before revealing that he has a condition to share his story.
I must have your word that you will not reveal my identity.
You have my pledge as a reporter.
Clark assures him, not that I would trust Clark. The man reveals his damaged body and the story behind it. He was in the Coreytown chain gang, treated worse than cattle, and thus escaped. He wants to reform public opinion on what goes on there, and thus contacted the Star. The aperture moves to show us Superintendent Wyman and his lackey abusing a man
In a murderous frenzy of sadistic hate.
when he claims he is too sick to continue working. Informed of the governor's imminent arrival, Wyman comments,
So, his Nibs is pussyfooting around again, eh? Take this no-good loafer and keep him hidden while the governor is here.
It turns out that Governor Bixby's arrived to verify the conditions at the site. Convenient? Wyman keeps his cool, pointing out how the stories
A blasted, dirty lie. If I believed for 1 second that it was true, by heavens, I'd...
He trails off, as he probably does believe its verity. The men have been emotionally corralled into policing one another, as evidenced by one's rapid shutting down of another's brave.
I'm gonna speak up.
The men stand silent, while guards grip their rifles in readiness should any man dare to talk.
No sooner than the governor leaves does the lackey come running back to inform wicked Wyman that the whipped man has died from his injuries.
Who cares? That story in the newspaper. There's only one man who could have supplied the details. Walter Crane.
2 days later, editor's office of the Daily Star.
We find Wyman complaining, and the editor nonchalantly informing him that the paper couldn't care less of his complaints, but that he can speak to the writer of the expose. Wyman demands to know who spilled the beans on account of Clark's claim that he isn't lying. But Clark keeps his word. Wyman reveals that he knows it's Crane, and pressures Clark further.
Mr. Kent, I don't like to be crude, but do you happen to realize that harboring a fugitive criminal makes you an accessory to the fact? Do you realize that if you don't reveal Crane's hiding place, you will be equally guilty and face a jail sentence?
The narration assures us that Clark's blurting out of Crane's location has everything to do with his cowardly public-facing persona, and of course we know he'll go protect Crane as Superman. But part of me feels like he chose this path so he could act as Superman. In other words, Clark chose violence. Actually, it's unclear what Clark's chosen here beyond an adherence to his persona as a full-fledged coward, since he brings Wyman to Crane's doorstep. Worse yet, He stands by as Wyman savagely strikes Crane twice, while verbally berating him. When Clark arrives back at the Star, his coworkers are outright disgusted with him. He approaches Lois, comically.
Lois, at least you'll understand, won't you? That superintendent, he was brutal. I was afraid...
How dare you even speak to me after what you've done? You loathsome wretch! Get away from me!
Now he walks into the editor's office to find the man out of his chair and hollering at him.
Kent, you back? I oughta...
With Clark pleading for a chance to explain. I like the body language in these panels. Clark struggles to explain himself, immediately claiming,
Can't you see? I hated to do it. I didn't want to betray him, but I was forced to.
Rationally, the chief thinks he means he intended to save his own hide. Yet, Clark gets a chance to right the record.
I did it to seal Wyman's doom. He'll go back to Coreytown now, convinced more than ever that he can get away with any form of brutality. He'll go to even further depths of cruelty.
In the remainder of the conversation, Clark convinces the editor of his intent to go to Coreytown and collect hard evidence of the cruelty. Here's where we'll see Superman. Also, I just want to reiterate for the umpteenth time now how adherent this Superman is to the ends justify the means. Indeed, once Clark gets home and changes...
An instant later, Superman is tearing along a country road at terrific speed toward Coreytown.
That's a camera in Clark's hand, if you're having trouble understanding the art here. Curiously, the next scene shows us Clark in alter ego Tom Daly, getting himself arrested by crashing into the superintendent's car and assaulting him.
Later, in the Coreytown courtroom, where justice is a mockery,
Tom Daly is sentenced to 6 months on the chain gang. Clark seeks Wyman's wrath and thus comments,
Only 6 months. Why, that'll be a snap, Judge, old boy.
Once he arrives, Wyman instructs the guards to
Take him to the stocks.
Shuster and Siegel have great fun with the following scene of Tom needling the superintendent, who taunts Clark that,
In a little while, your back and arms will ache unbearably.
It could never be as unbearable as having to look at that ugly puss of yours.
hours later the guard comments,
The man has the resistance of an ox.
I hope you boys aren't tired of standing. It's mighty swell of you to let me sit here nice and cozy while all the others are working hard. Is it possible, Superintendent, that you have a secret liking for me?
Wyman flips out, demanding Tom's immediate release. Clark is sent to smash rocks, and does so in 5 minutes flat. Without suspicion, Wyman sentences him to a second, doubly large pile, which he also takes care of in mere minutes. After supper, where Clark remarks on the impossibly low quality of the grub, he waits for everyone to fall asleep, and a guard to turn their back. Then,
Superman's great muscles launch him noiselessly over the heads of unsuspecting guards.
as Superman, Clark begins gathering photographic evidence when he suddenly hears someone coming. Unfortunately, a guard spots Crane and nicks him with a bullet. Adrenaline courses through Crane's body, allowing him to
Scramble to his feet and dash for the dubious safety of the swamp.
powerful phrasing there in dubious safety. Crane hears the bloodhounds Wyman released, and ends up stumbling into a quagmire in fear.
Superman had hastened after Crane. He now finds him in this terrible predicament.
Thankfully, he's able to free him. For some reason,
Superman returns Crane to the chain gang camp.
Will the Superintendent be surprised to find his prey where he least suspects?
again, I don't really think this version of Clark is particularly wise. It turns out his plan was to subject Crane to torture for the sake of collecting evidence, oy vey, in a not quite redeeming series of events. Satisfied with his gathered evidence, Clark forces Wyman's face into the slop he was busy taunting the imprisoned Crane with. He then
Removes Crane from the sweatbox. Substitutes the terrified superintendent in his place.
and casually informs him that
I've got to leave you now, but I'll be back. Maybe.
Next instant, the Man of Steel is dashing off into the night, fleeting shadow under the moon's hazy rays.
The end of this comic is actually so unhinged, y'all. Classic Supes kidnaps Governor Bixby, refusing to assuage the man's fears as they sail through the night.
What?
You'll find out.
Clark sounds quite the villain.
Now all you gotta do is listen. Savvy?
What a scary, scary, scary man. He leans in towards Wyman and tells him,
I'm going to plug the air holes, you'll suffocate and die, just like your own victims did.
No, no! Let me free! I swear I'll never torture the prisoners again.
unceremoniously, he confirms for the governor.
You've heard his confession, now it's up to you. So long.
The comic then closes with a panel of the editor confirming Clark's success and apologizing for everyone's misjudgment of him. I cannot say I'm surprised that Clark doesn't fight an airplane in the issue, by the way, but I am disappointed. A note now about Action Comics number 11, whose cover is shown here. Shuster and Siegel's massive success with their Superman character necessitated the operation of a studio where they trained other artists in their style. This phenomenon was not unique to them, and plenty of comics in the Golden Age were ghosted by other artists and signed by someone else. However, this is the first issue where their confidence in one of their artists, or the circumstances behind its creation, necessitated that Paul Cassidy and not Joe Shuster would perform pencil duties. While Shuster inked the comic, I don't personally count it as part of the Shuster and Siegel run of Superman. In the story, Clark discovers a story himself about brokers cheating folks out of their stock money regarding an oil well. So he disguises himself and purchases stocks from owners to save them potential grief. Strangely, the oil well has no work being done on it. He decides he's going to correct that to drive up the value of the stock. This causes the brokers to confront Clark and rough him up, yet he convinces them to buy the shares back at a cool $1 million. However, the story ends with Superman kidnapping the men and forcing them to watch him destroy the oil well, rendering their stocks worthless. And yes, Clark has $1 million now. And so concludes part 1 of Superman's 1939 adventures. There's just so very many of them. I had to break it up. Tune back in about 3 weeks to see what happens in April, May, and June. This episode of the Almanac Comicopia was made possible by
Rachel!
And our very special guest narrator,
Dan Few here. Read more comics.
our resident Superman,
Slower than a speeding bullet, less powerful than a locomotive, unable to leap practically at all. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's me, Sam Katz.
and myself, Troy. Here's hoping that you've had an informative and entertaining stint with us today. Make sure to check out other videos for further context on what's happening, or what happened, in the original DCU. Goodbye.